Happy New Year. Hope you aren't too hungover for the start of this new year. Let's get this fucking year. If you've been putting all the shit off that you want to do, make sure this is your year. Everybody has these false promises. They say, this year I'm going to lose weight. This year I'm going to start my own fucking business. Let's not do that this fucking year. Let's get it started, and the best day to do it is today. Who cares that you're fucking hangover? Go research something about your company. We're going to do a handstand push-up first, and then I'll show you a few regressions. This is one of the first ever, I guess, calisthenics movements you'll learn, and it's probably the most versatile because you can literally do it everywhere, and the crossover strength from your handstand push-up to bench to shoulder press to everything else for upper body is pretty big. So essentially this is what we're going to do. Handstands is going to be your first movement that you need to nail. Straight down, forward lean, back up.
Wow.
A lot of people start by coming down and pushing their elbows out, try and get their head between their hands.
No.
It's not a strong position, because when we do a shoulder press, we go into this movement where it is straight up and down. Essentially in a handstand push-up, we're going from here to here. The hips just stay over your hands.
What the fuck was that?
We're going to go through some regressions so we can get better quicker. You can use a wall to get your handstand, but if you kick up to a wall too often, your body starts to think the wall's always going to be there, and then that's what starts to fuck you with your balance coming off the wall. The best way to learn is to always try and do the movement assisted, and the best way to do assisted movements, especially in calisthenics, is with a band. If you can get into the exact position you need to be in while being able to do the push-up movement or a handstand, then you're gonna get better at that movement a lot quicker. So the best exercise for them, grab a band. You can go all the way up to a green band, blue band, whatever you're gonna do. Open it up to keep that clamp up there. Put it around your waist. Pull it back so the clamp comes down, just so it keeps the band around your waist. Come about 100 to 200 mil in front of where the band is sitting. And there's a couple ways to do this. You can keep your feet on it, like that. You can pull your feet off, but then you normally fall forward. So when you're beginning, just keep your feet up there, and that band is gonna act as resistance to pull you back up. That's it, perfect. Fucking beautiful, look at that. Now I can do a handstand push-up. First time ever.
That worked, baby. How many reps?
30. So that, because he can get into the position he needs to be in, is probably one of the best ways to learn how to do a handstand push-up. One, for the strength, because you can start going down the bands. Obviously, if you get to the lightest band, it's going to be harder to balance, so it's also going to help with your balance, but also start focusing more on your balance before you get to that point. A lot of people, when they start doing a handstand push-up, especially if you come from CrossFit, they'll hyperextend through their back, like this. And when you take the band away, you won't really be able to handstand push-up like this. You want to be in a nice hollow position. So you only keep one foot wrapped and then come down and try and get more of a neutral position rather than this hyperextended position. So one foot back, it's going to offset your weight all the way up, all the way back down. Obviously a precursor is going to be a handstand. If you can't hold a handstand, you're more than likely not going to be able to do a handstand push-up. They're probably the hardest aspect. When you're upside down, because we've been upright our whole lives, as soon as you go upside down, your proprioception pretty much goes dry. Even the simplest move, like a hinge, and I'll show you a second with Brody, I'll give him an exercise. A hinge is almost impossible to fathom when you're upside down, when all you're doing is this. First exercise that everybody should start to do, shoulder stand is super easy to balance. And then once you can balance the shoulder stand, you can start trying to improve your proprioception through hinging upside down. So this is a shoulder stand. Your point of balance, or your center of gravity, is closer to the ground. A handstand, your center of gravity, say it's my waist, is about 1 meter off the ground. Here it goes a bit closer and everything stays tight, so it's a lot easier to control. So when you come into a shoulder stand, head to ground, you're just going to kick up and hold this position here. And that's a lot easier to balance movements throughout. I can do a lot without falling down, where if I was to do this in a handstand, I'd be falling straight down. Brody's going to do a shoulder stand. This is one of his first goes, and he never ends up upside down, so let's see how we go. That was better. So try and hinge those hips. See how his erectors, until just then, his erectors were firing? because he was in his fight or flight response. Now he's in a better position to try and find his balance point where I barely have to touch him for him to get into that position. But prior to this, his feet were dead straight, his erectors were firing, and he couldn't really only have normal touches. See right now, that's his erectors going, yeah, we're in a bad position. Best thing we want to do when we start learning the handstand is get better at switching on our proprioceptors and being better at understanding where our body is when we're upside down. So we want to go by handstanding against the wall and then keeping our shoulders straight, not leaning forward like this. Keeping our shoulders straight, all we're going to do is hinge. That's it, hyperextend, hinge. You're not going to bring your ass through like this. We're going to do it where I was saying disconnect your hips, hinge, and then back through. Over time, as that gets easier, pull your hands out and do the exact same thing. Still straight through the shoulders. We're just going into a kind of opposite hyperextension. Back this way. All you're literally doing is this. It's so easy to do a straight up. And that's one of the main things that you do as a handstand, and why it takes people so long to get a handstand is because they can't understand where their body is when they're upside down. And if you don't know what your body's doing when you're upside down, or you can't control it, you will never be able to balance certain aspects of it, because you'll either stay cross-fitting, where it's all about momentum, and you're always in this hyper extended place to move forward. But if you want to stay in one spot and your body's like this, you're always fighting the momentum from going back to going straight up. And that's the only way you can fix that, is by understanding what you're doing upside down. The third exercise we're going to do, and I think it's what got me to the next level of my handstand training, they're called, or I call them L-ups. I don't really know what they're called, but it keeps your body in a straight position. So the perfect handstand when you're up in the air is shoulders stacked over hands, hips stacked over shoulders, feet stacked over hips, and you can hold this position for fucking ever. To start getting into the motion of that while you're doing those other exercises that I was showing you before, we want to do L-ups, because kicking up's one of the hardest things, because you've got to slow down momentum at the perfect time. You've got to have enough momentum to get up, especially if you're taller. You've got to use your legs more to get up, because you have to throw them so high. So these are called L-ups, and you change, what you do is you kick up one leg, keep one leg down, switch them at the top, back down. And you want to do that as slow as possible to begin with, and don't get too frustrated, because you're probably going to look more like this. But over time, you'll be able to find the perfect position. You can even hyperextend one leg if you want. And that's going to start teaching you where you can catch your handstand and where you're kicking too hard or you're not coming up high enough.
From an S&C standpoint, what I would do personally to help strengthen in that position is I'd use a strict press. So with our strict press, you're really focusing on all the strength in your front delts and essentially your upper chest as well. Staying nice and tight. Again, we're not using our knees. We're trying to stay as strict as possible and put all the load through those delts and upper chest. So you want those elbows nice and tight. Squeeze those glutes, keep the chin tucked in, or you're gonna hit yourself in the chin. I've done it before, it fucking hurts. So keep that chin tucked in, nice and strict, and we're just gonna drive straight up. And when we come up, we're gonna drive that head through. That's gonna help us keep that nice and stable position. Then we're gonna slowly lower that back down. We're trying to strengthen the position. We're not trying to build muscle, so we're trying to get stronger. So I wouldn't go over 5 reps. I pick a nice heavy load where you can do a good 5 reps, not struggling, not using your knees, and then I do 4 to 5 sets of that. Now, if you want to take it to another level, you can do reps with a nice isometric hold at the end. Nice and strict. 2, 3, and then we can hold it at the top for anywhere from about 5 to 10 seconds. The importance of keeping those elbows nice and tight in strict press as well. Obviously, it's going to make it easier to push up, but you're also reducing the risk of injury. So if my elbows are flat out and I'm trying to push up, it's actually way harder, and you're just putting a lot of pressure on those shoulder joints.
For some reason, our body puts us in stupid positions where, for some reason, it thinks that if we start externally rotating our shoulders, then we're going to be able to push through it easier, but it's just more dangerous for your shoulders. So, and it's a weaker position in general. So in the handstand push-up, once you're up here, if you start doing that movement where your shoulders start externally rotating, you're coming down like this, and you're very weak. If you can come down and keep those elbows tucked the whole time, you can hold this position once you're strong enough for a long time, and you get more push instead of being here.